All right, good evening. It is 6:31 p.m. right now here in downtown Albuquerque. Thought I'd do a little LNAW this week, legal news analysis of the week. I was trying to think of what to think of. I had a little time, got some stuff in, got some motions in late this afternoon, and I was around the office, and I was trying to think of what would be a good topic to discuss. There's been a lot of stuff on the news, some legal stuff. You've got, I guess, the old Menendez brothers case. I was a little kid. I remember a lot of the players in that case. You had, different attorneys, and of course the Menendez brothers, Eric and Lau Menendez. But I was too young to really remember. I just remember the defense attorney in that case, Leslie Abrams, when she was rolling around the floor in her closing statement. That's all I remember about that case. As far as the specifics of the facts, I mean, everybody knows that they murdered their parents, and they were, one of the guys was captured out in Israel, and Robert Shapiro had him surrender, and all that entertainment stuff. But I don't really know, and I haven't watched this documentary, this Netflix. I mean, as I've said before, previously in Outlaws, every news story now, every court show, whatever, they all have a different Netflix special, whether it's John Wayne Gacy or the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, or whoever. You got a story, a Netflix show on every story nowadays. So I didn't think that was necessary. Then this Johan Vandersloot, the Aruba guy. Then now he's locked up in Peru. He murdered somebody else, but he had murdered Natalie Holloway. That was a little older when that was going on. I still remember it was always on Fox News. Greta Van Susteren. I always remember her when I think of that. When I think of that story. So these kind of things. But Jordan Venus, I remember they went to a beach. I still remember hearing about a Papa's and Charlie's, some sort of restaurant. They were getting drunk and high, and who knows doing what. I don't, whether he drugged them or they were all just doing drugs or whatever. We don't know. But I don't know the specifics of what made everybody believe that he had actually murdered her. I know there was some, that was one of those where it could have been borderline. Maybe, things just kind of went wrong, and maybe there was not an intent to kill, but then maybe they were just trying to cover up. And I remember it was Joran Vandersloot and Deepak and Satish Kalpo. I remember were the suspects originally in that case. But that was a long time. So anyway, these are all stories, again, they create nostalgia to a certain extent. It kind of reminds me of how old I'm getting. But I think it's the best thing to talk about right now, really. And I don't like to get into even if I'm not getting into the politics of a story, I don't, or of an individual. I don't want to get into something that involves somebody that is going to create a politically charged reaction or whatever. But it is a legal case. So the situation with Donald Trump, that he was found liable for defaming an individual by the name of E. Jean Carroll, and he was also found liable for committing battery upon her. So there's that case, and then there was also this George Santos guy out in New York. I haven't really been following that much, and that's going to play out, and that's a criminal case though. So that falls a little bit within more my realm, but I don't really know what's going on there, and I haven't really followed that too much, but maybe we'll have an element on that down the road. But let's talk about the Donald Trump thing. Okay, there's a couple things. Defamation. Now I know that defamation was big. We've had two LNAWs in regards to Johnny Depp, and I said I didn't want to really talk about him anymore. But in that, I said, look, I mean, whether he was guilty of what he was alleged to have committed against Amber Heard, his ex-wife, I believe that criminally cannot be proven. But to say then that he was defamed and then Amber Heard made it up, I thought that was a stretch. In regards to Donald Trump, it's a little bit interesting. So this is a little bit reversed here. You have the battery allegation. Now, this is a civil case, so it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. Like if you're trying to prove battery in criminal court, a good example everybody likes to use is O.J. Simpson, as usual. Everybody likes to remind us of the O.J. Simpson case. But in O.J. Simpson, he was not guilty of murder. And did prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. And then a Santa Monica jury found him liable to the Goldman family. The Goldman was the sidekick, or the other person who was killed with Nicole Brown Simpson. Ron Goldman actually went to my high school in Illinois. But Ron Goldman's family, Fred Goldman, and I forgot his mom's name. I always remember this Fred Goldman guy. But Fred Goldman, his family got a judgment against O.J. Simpson, whether he paid it or who knows, he was hiding money in the Caribbean or Florida or whatever, I don't know. But there was a judgment. He was found liable. Now, in regards To Donald Trump, it's a different, again, a different standard. There has been no criminal case in regards to this. They didn't bring a criminal case against him in New York in regards to this, but there was, he was sued, got sued for battery, and he was found liable for that this week. And then also, interestingly enough, similar to the Johnny Depp situation, well, I shouldn't say similar, it's kind of reversed here, but this E. Jean Carroll person is now saying that Donald Trump defamed her by saying that essentially saying that she was making stuff up, and I guess he's got his social media site Truth Social or whatever, and was basically just saying that she's, I don't know, whatever Donald Trump says. I mean, she's a nasty person or whatever. He was saying he posted this on his Truth Social, so basically she was saying he was being defamed, or he was defaming her. Excuse me. So now the question is, how do we prove this? The standard is preponderance of the evidence, which is quite interesting. It's more likely than not, basically, that this happened. And I've said this before. I've had criminal juries here in Albuquerque after they found a client of mine guilty once. I had one guy tell me, "Oh, we thought more likely than not this guy committed the crime, so we found him guilty." Okay. That is not the standard in criminal cases. It is beyond a reasonable doubt. That means there's no plausible alternative based on the facts and evidence presented, except that the defendant committed the crime. Okay, so if there's a reasonable alternative, Y could have happened instead of X, then that gives you reasonable doubt. But this person clearly, this wise guy was clearly not paying attention to what everybody was saying, from me to the judge and even the prosecutors, and basically said, more likely than not, maybe heard it on court TV or something, I don't know, but that's more likely than not has to do with preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. But in regards to this particular civil case that we're dealing with Donald Trump, it was more likely than not. Okay, now the question becomes, did he batter her? And was he basically defaming her by saying she was making this up or whatever else he was saying? Now, as far as the battery is concerned, I don't know, and I don't want anybody. This again, I'm not going to go into whether Donald Trump. This is not about whether you like Donald Trump or not. I'm going strictly on the law. From what I understand, she's testifying. She's saying that he followed her into, or they were in a grocery store or something, or not in a grocery store, some clothing store or something, and they went in a dressing room and whatever happened. Okay, this happened several years ago. Now, a lot of times there are these situations that call delayed disclosure or different things where people disclose several years down the road. That doesn't necessarily mean that that person's making it up, but that also doesn't mean that you have to completely ignore the burdens and the evidentiary thresholds. And sometimes it's hard to find that evidence or later down the road, or be able to prove it clearly. My understanding is she had a few witnesses, or I don't know if these witnesses that she basically said that she had told some other people. I don't know if they could have brought that in, what she said. And again, I didn't follow this case closely. Maybe they just brought these witnesses in to say, did you have a conversation with her or whatever, without going into the specifics of that. And then that's how they were maybe able to link that to what she was saying that she told them. But other than that, I haven't seen anything specific as to, and I don't know, maybe I haven't followed this case closely, but haven't seen any real specifics linking, saying that would prove that Donald Trump battered her, whether it's a surveillance video. I mean, Donald Trump saying he doesn't know who this person is. There's, I guess, a photo with her. There's clearly evidence, I guess, that Donald Trump, and I guess he's known to fabricate stuff in the past, but there's clearly evidence that he's making stuff up. And sometimes it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. If the juries are really going based on the letter of the law and what's going on, it really shouldn't matter whether Donald Trump has a history of doing crazy stuff, or is making stuff up, or is being arrogant. But I guess they had a deposition where they brought up this Access Hollywood video where he was on the backstage of Access Hollywood or something and said that he can do whatever he wants to women. I'm not going to go into the specifics. A lot of you probably know what he said, but there was this whole video of him, I guess, saying that, and then he basically, this deposition, I heard this, said, well, I'm a celebrities have been able to do this for generations. That's all I'm saying. I wasn't saying he wasn't necessarily was right or wrong, or fortunate or unfortunate or something like that. But yes, people have been able to do this for generations. And then when asked, would you consider yourself a celebrity or would you consider yourself an important person or something like that, he said yes. So basically, he's not denying this. He's not backing away from this. He's basically saying, yes, look, I am, celebrities or people who are in the public eye or whatever can get away with stuff like this. In public eye, such as a star. That's what it is. If you're a star, then you can get away with stuff like this. And then he was asked, "Are you a star?" And he said, "Yes, I am a star." Or I would think so, in a Donald Trump kind of way. He said, I would think so. I'm a star or something in a kind of condescending, sarcastic way. So he said that, and that's not going to help him here with the jury, the way he presents that and all of that. And then you've got, I think there was a photo of him with this person at some event, just like they've had pictures with Donald Trump and all those people like O.J. Simpson or Muhammad Ali and all these different people, Jeffrey Epstein. There's always photos of Trump with someone or another when he says he's never met these people. So that doesn't look good for him. It looks like he may be just making stuff up or fabricating it. But I don't believe that goes to the evidence here. The evidence is, he may have been doing stuff he shouldn't have done. And again, other people are coming out with sexual abuse allegations or different things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that really pertains to this particular instance, right? But this is one of those things when you create this kind of, I don't know what the makeup of the jury is or was, but when you have this whole kind of production and they're clearly making Trump out to be a liar and arrogant and pompous or whatever, standard is more likely than not. Trump's not a sympathetic figure, and I don't think any of those jurors, I'm sure every one of those jurors knew who Donald Trump is. It makes things extremely difficult. Now, for Donald Trump, but I still don't believe that the evidentiary threshold is met, even with preponderance of the evidence. Now, when we're talking about a public figure, now I don't know if this E. Jean Carroll. So there's in regards to defamation, when you're dealing, if Donald Trump wants to say he's being defamed, he's a public figure. So based on the case that everybody learns in law school and all this called New York Times versus Sullivan, there has to be actual malice. So normally in defamation, if it's just false, it's published, whatever, and you have damages, you can sue for defamation. Somebody like me, if somebody says that Jay Nair was smoking a bunch of cigarettes and drinking moonshine and caused this great Chicago fire back in the day, even though I wasn't alive when the Great Chicago Fire happened. But if they allege that, first of all, I wasn't alive. Secondly, I don't smoke, and thirdly, I've never drank moonshine. I don't. I may drink other stuff, but I haven't drink moonshine. Okay, I've never drank that stuff, or Everclear, or something like that. He was super drunk, and he smoked some cigarettes and just threw them out, causing the Great Chicago Fire. It wasn't that cow or the whatever. It was Jay Nair who caused the Great Chicago Fire. If that's clearly false. Now, that's also unreasonable maybe to believe because of my age, and the Great Chicago Fire happened, several years before that I was ever born. But let's take out the age thing. Let's just say I was the same age, or it was during my time, or whatever, this Great Chicago Fire thing. Then, when you put together, but if it can show that I don't smoke, I've never smoked. You'll never see smoke packs in my place. Doesn't smell like smoke. And moonshine, I guess that can be, maybe they can pull up a picture of me drinking from the past or whatever, saying that, okay, that can say that, Jay Nair could possibly drink moonshine. But there needs to be more evidence than that to prove that I, in fact, caused the Great Chicago Fire, right? But if they can prove that, and then I'm not a public figure, then I'm entitled to my damages, whatever that caused me, whether it's in my work or whatever. But if if I'm a public figure, and Donald Trump being the former president of the United States, clearly a public figure, you have to show actual malice, that you knew it was false, or you recklessly said this without really looking into it. Okay, and a lot of times this pertains to newspapers. That's why it was the New York Times versus Sullivan. But when we're dealing with Johnny Depp, for example, he was considered more of a public figure. Then yes, that pertains to that individual, and they had to show that Amber Heard actually made this up and intended actual malice upon Johnny Depp. And the same thing, but this is kind of reversed. Now, whether this E. Jean Carroll person is in fact a public figure. I guess she is. Maybe, I mean, I think there's also a standard for a limited public figure, but I guess she is. Donald Trump is actually, I guess, in an ironic kind of way here, has made her into a public figure. So maybe an actual mild standard, but she's not a public official, anything like that. Regardless of that, they're basically saying Trump was reckless. He just made this up. But even if he didn't, I mean, if it's a non-public figure, then just by being wrong and causing damage, and clearly when the president of the United States says mean things about you and says you're making stuff up, that would definitely affect your reputation and possibly your income and different things and cause damages. So that's where we stand there. But again, standards preponderance of evidence, I still don't think that was met here. I think it was just you have a defendant here who's not necessarily very sympathetic and not helping his cause by coming across as arrogant and being caught in a bunch of lies. But really, none of that really pertains to the real evidence in this case. But juries aren't going to look at that. I mean, it's different. And people are now the politics. Again, I don't want to get into politics of this, but then people say, "Oh, it's a New York City jury. They're out for Trump." I don't know about all that, but whatever it is, maybe the makeup of the jury demographics, which I don't know. But at this particular juncture, I don't believe there's preponderance of the evidence. But clearly, Donald Trump did not help himself with the deposition and just the denials and different things in this matter. Okay, have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.